Good morning. Good morning. Sharpened Perspectives podcast, episode 9. It is September 27th. Again, I think Wednesday is going to become our new recording day. It used to be Monday, but I think it's Wednesday now.
Yeah, a lot less pressure. I feel like doing it in the middle of the week, even though we only have, 12 hours or whatever until it drops.
It's crazy when the your work week kicks off on a Monday, just how quickly like the day can consume you. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of stuff catching up from everything on the weekend. Even though we're working usually on the weekends, our vendors aren't, and most people aren't. So,
yeah, but we're here. I just actually was out in the shop earlier today, and then I dipped out to handle some stuff, and now I'm back here for the rest of the afternoon, thankfully. It's been an interesting week. I've been struggling to get back on track after Maker Syndicate. I think you're in a similar situation.
Definitely. Yeah, this past week has been pretty chill. I mean, we've had a lot of stuff going on with the kids, and this morning we went to Hudson School. There was an award assembly, and he got an award at school. Had like the whole school was out there, and he got an award, which is pretty sweet. So we had parent-teacher conferences last week, and they gave us a heads up, like, hey, make sure you're here. So that was really cool. He was stoked on that.
Nice. What was the award for?
It was for we just got it, dude, and I forgot. It's basically he got an award for excellence in. Dude, I'm drawing a blank. A total blank.
Of the year over here,
right? Dude, I literally just got back, dude. Excellence and effort is what the award was for. So, they said because he's in that DLI program, that dual language immersion. And the teacher basically said, like, dude, he tries so freaking hard in class, learning Spanish, and he's coming home every day and he's teaching us stuff, so, and Brittany and I actually just re-signed up for a Spanish class because through his school, we get free online courses through like the Fresno State University. So we just signed up for a bunch of classes. So we're taking Spanish right now too, but it's cool because he comes home and he teaches us Spanish, and then we're learning stuff, even though I took it in high school.
Caliente, dude.
See, yeah, yeah, dude.
I guess down there it makes sense. Like,
yeah,
there's probably just as many Spanish-speaking folks as there are English-speaking folks. So you might as well, if you can, not a bad idea. Up here, they don't, we don't speak Amish or anything. It's all English up here. But that's cool, dude. Cool. I mean, that's sweet for him. We have Campbell just got an award last week. It's called Bee of the Week because he goes to school at a school called Grandview, and their mascot is the bees. Mm-hmm. And so they pick like a kid in each grade, I don't know, every week, and just like give them an award, Bee of the Week, for, outstanding excellence and effort or whatever, like you talked about. I don't think it like is defined by any one characteristic, but it seems like once a year, each of my kids, gets that award, and they're all fired up and stuff. And it's always cool to be able to support the kids, with even small commendations like that, just to make them feel special. But that's very cool that they had like a whole ceremony for him. That's pretty rad.
Yeah, it was rad. Yeah, it was like an hour. I mean, there was a bunch of kids. There was like 4 or 5 kids, 6 kids from each grade that got one, or each class. So it was nice. Cool. It was like an hour long, but yeah, it was nice. But yeah, so this past week, I didn't do really much on the knives. I started doing some of the finish work on the remaining 10 that I have. But that's kind of what I'm on today. So like past week, we went to Disneyland a couple times, and we just hung out and kind of chilled with the family. I'm like, I don't have a hard deadline for anything now. So it's hard for me to really push and stay out here till like 1 or 2 in the morning like I was before the show.
Not necessary.
It's not necessary, but I definitely need to keep up some momentum. So like yesterday I was out here, I was working on some stuff, and then today I'm going to be doing the same thing. So I'm going to try and drop some of them on Saturday.
Sweet.
So kind of first announcement on here, but Facebook group too, I think is going to be the first spot to do it. And yeah.
Nice, man. I mean, it makes sense to do it in the Facebook group, continue to bolster that. I think what's most important right now is that you're allocating some of the cash that you made to like acquiring what you need for the next run. Like, even if you're not finishing what you're doing right now, like getting the front end work done so that when you do finish these, you can segue right into like a fresh batch. I think that like that's what's most important. I'm kind of trying to do that now. Just re-upping on stuff like hardware and, anything that like I depleted myself of in show preparation. Like, while I'm kind of handling shop logistics, I'm trying to at least keep the packages rolling in and, try and make sure that I'm ready for whatever I do next. I actually just started a bunch. I have like 6 or 7 transients over there that I'm working on actively. I have all the parts finished for them. Blades are even heat treated, surface ground, and hard milled. I just have to assemble them and then start to finish. Those are like my last now 3 remaining book orders, and then like 4 other ones that I just had told guys I would make for them over the however long, that I haven't even taken a deposit for, but just, just work to do. And then I actually started making a bunch of 2.9 transient parts also. Those are actually for like friends, just like knives that aren't even really being paid for. They're just like knives that I had told friends over the years, local friends, for whatever reason, like, hey, I'd love to make you a knife. So I'm just trying to like take the time to like water the grass a little bit with regard to knocking some of those out for guys. It's crazy how fast time peels off, man. It's like the show was a week and a half ago, and now I already have this. I'm leaving on October 10th to go to a wedding in Montana. I'll be there for 5 or 6 days. I haven't even bought my plane ticket yet. Like, yeah, I'm fucking behind the 8 ball on it. And I'm the best man in the guy's wedding. So what does that tell you? So I got to get that knocked out. But in the meantime, like, I'm trying to wrap up. I have like 30 Mac knives over there that like I want to finish and ship on October 1st. Like, I still have to make clips, but spacers, frames, and blades are all finished. And then, like I said, I'm making 2.9 parts over here. And I'm trying to get the logistics figured out now for this run of transients that I'm going to be doing, where I'm towards the end of November. I'm shooting to be able to drop 5 to 8 transients a week. So I'm trying to get like all the logistics in place as those blades, are coming to completion, like to have all the frames and everything ready so that I can be like transitioning to being prepared for those weekly drops. So I'm kind of trying to think about that. There's a lot of logistics involved there with regard to like payment processing and like, website, being able to like, whether it's Shopify or whatever else you're using for distribution of knives, trying to like dial in a more reliable way to be able to sell and then distribute those knives, like where it's not just me doing DM shit and PayPal friends and family transactions. You know what I mean? I want to have something more legit. So I've been working with a guy, a buddy of mine, for the last like 6 months, trying to get that all hammered out. We have about to activate, have to like activate the website with like live products that like the payment processor can go through and purchase, and I had to like verify with them, like provide receipts for inventory for materials purchases from vendors, like all these different things to prove that like I'm manufacturing the items here, for them to allocate like the ability for me to utilize them as a high risk payment processor. So like that's all kind of coming to fruition now. Our hunting season opens on Saturday, which, I mean, you and a lot of people know is like a very important time for me. A lot of times in October and November, I actually don't really even work that much. I'm pretty much just hunting deer. And so like this is one of those years where that's like, unfortunately, like not going to take priority, which is weird. But yeah, I'm going to do whatever I can over the next 4 weeks to really try and get the shop in line. So the first 2 weeks in November, I can be out hunting as much as I want to. Like that's when, the rut kicks off for the deer breeding, and like, that's like the prime time for like whitetail hunters. But unfortunately, that's also like smack dab at the end of CCKS prep, because the show is November 12th. So it's like, yeah, I got my work cut out for me. I got to really start turning my gears and making sure that I'm utilizing my time as best as possible, because there ain't much to waste over the next 7 weeks.
Yeah, you're already back in show prep. I mean, kind of like where we started the podcast was basically at the same point for CCKS.
Yeah, actually, you're right. Because, I mean, if you think about it, this is episode 9, so the show would have been episode 7. So 7 weeks. That's exactly the point that I was at that time, too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I haven't even ordered material for anything yet. I think I'm doing all carbon fiber frames on this one. They were such a hit at Maker Syndicate that I'm going to go with some different fat carbon patterns, or I might use camo carbon. I'm not sure yet. But I think I'm going to bring all subliner frame configurations and just belt satin blades again, just kind of my MO. And then I'm going to cut a blade out of this new billet of Performance Damascus we forged, and that's going to be my auction piece for the show. So I'd really like to, in a perfect world, all the 2.9 parts will be machined by the end of September, which they pretty much are all done. I'm actually doing the blades right now, prepping them for heat treat. But frames, liner inserts, backspacers, pocket clips are all finished. All the parts are made for all those 3.2s over there. So I'd like to wrap up these blades. And then on the 1st of October, I want to rededicate the VF2 to Mac production for the month of, for delivery on November 1st, which actually this is almost a full complement of Mac projects. For the last couple of months, I've had guys like pausing projects and like, delaying them just because they were like either in show prep or they were backed up. And I utilized that time like, yeah, that's fine. I'm doing show prep anyway. So if we want to cut back on that, but yeah, starting on October 1st, I'm going to have a full complement of Mac projects to manufacture. And I'm going to pretty much just try and do that in the VF2 and see if the VF2 on its own with the right schedule can handle all of Mac stuff for a month. And then I'm pretty much in the super mini mill. I'm going to be running components for CCKS. And then while that cycle time's happening, be finishing knives over here. So I'm going to try and get as far ahead on the CCKS knives as I possibly can before the end of November, because I would love to like have everything assembled where I'm just grinding blades, locks, detents, and finishes, like at that Halloween type time. So that over the course of November, the first 2 weeks of November before I fly out, I can be hunting in the morning, working in the middle of the day, hunting in the evening, working at night. Just like take like 10 or 12 days of just like 14, 16-hour days to get my time in the tree, but also be finishing knives. So that's kind of like what my schedule looks like for the next like 6 or 7 weeks. And I think it's going to work out. We'll see, I guess.
Nice. Yeah, it helps you got 2 spindles. For sure.
That is a game changer, right? Like I forget, I look at that all the time. For like a year and a half, I only had the super mini mill, and you're kind of hamstrung. You're just like, you can stack up work as far out linearly as you want, but at the end of the day, you're just job after job. There's only so much you can do. Mm-hmm. You add a second spindle and it completely changed obviously that's like obvious that it would do that, but like you don't really think about if you plan it right, you can get, I want to say, you probably don't get 200% more work done, like, because when you have one machine, you just keep it fed all the time and there's such little downtime. With 2, I think you probably, I would say, like are 70% more efficient than you were with one machine, just because you're creating downtime with cycle overlap and stuff. And like, and we used to do time studies at my old job. I don't know if you ever did these, like,
every day.
Actual, actual spindle uptime assessments where it's like you're factoring, parts time in between cycles, you're factoring in tool replacements, you're factoring in whatever programming changes you need to make, and then just like how much time are you logged in, are you getting paid for versus how much time is the spindle actually running. And I feel like our metric for like you're doing really well was like 60 to 70%. If your spindle was running 60 or to 70% of your shift, granted, this is like job shop style machining, not production, where I'm sure they want to be like 90% plus, where there's like so little downtime. But in a job shop style environment, we felt like if you were at like that 65% number, like that was a sustainable number that like was totally cool with them. So that's kind of like the number that I try and figure. If I'm out here for 12 hours a day and I can work for, if I have the spindle running for 8, that's a pretty good day,
Yeah. Yeah. Like we talked about too. I mean, it's just another tool in the shop too. So like for you, because you're doing the Mac stuff, I mean, obviously you want to have the machine running as much as possible. But like for me, since I don't have any material for knife stuff, like machine's only been on a little bit here and there because I'm doing some slide stuff. I dropped off a bunch yesterday. I picked a bunch more up. I was working on a little project for Hudson yesterday, which I might make a few more of. We talked about that a little bit.
Oh yeah.
So other than that, I mean, the machine hasn't really been on too much really at all since we got back from Makers. So I'm going to probably run some stuff today. I have some spare tie that I'm going to use for those parts, and I'm probably going to make a few more of them. They're cool. It's we talked about it a little bit. It's just a titanium coin. Put a bunch of tool paths in it though, and doing some kind of texture and 3D surfacing and stuff in it. Most guys are just getting them like die struck, so there's a lot of cool detail in them, but it's all imported China stuff, or they're doing them on a laser, which is cool too. But
it's not that cool.
Do a full like machine coin, I think would be cool. It just complements all the stuff too, and it's so. But yeah, I want to do some where it's just my logo on one side. And I was thinking about it last night. It'd be cool to kind of come up with something that's just like all of us, pretty much all of us that were at the arcade and a couple other buddies, and do something on one side that we can all do, and then do our own thing on the other side individually. I
agree, man. It kind of reminds me of like what you guys used to have at the old shop. What was it? The California Knife Maker. What was it again? I can't remember.
CKMU.
Yeah. California Knife Makers United or whatever.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of
exactly same kind of thing would be cool. So throw that on one side, and then we can each do whatever we want on the other side. It'd be cool. It's just something to throw in photos,
for sure.
Background, carry around. I know a lot of guys are nerds about coins, so plus it's just
honestly, like if you dial that in, you could start like making those for shows. You know what I mean? Even if it was the show's logo or whatever, like just an extra piece to go along with the knife. And I guarantee you that like 90% of people that get a knife would buy a coin for like 75 or $100. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, I want that to go with this for sure.
That was actually the plan that I had with all of the spare tie from the frames. I have 30 pieces because I made 15 sets of frames, but I can only fit a coin that was like 1.25 inches, which is kind of small.
Gay.
Which is gay. So these are 1 3/4, 1 3/4, 3/16 thick, and it's completely surfaced. The logo's all surfaced in there. It's hard to see kind of because there's no light right there, but anyways, there's a bunch of texture and tool paths and stuff.
Just holding it like Sarah jaws or talons and then flipping it over in soft jaws or what?
Yeah, so it's a 1/4 inch. It's 1/4 inch thick stock. It finishes at 3/16, and holding it talons, adaptive the outside, 2D contour to finish the profile face, and then I use an 1/8 inch ball and mill to do all of the surfacing between the two circles, and then it's like a 5 or 7 thou radius single flute engraver to do the logo. And then a chamfer tool around the outside. And then I flip it, throw it in soft jaws. And because it's square material, I can throw a square on it and then keep the orientation. So I was going back and forth between like orientation on this stuff, because a lot of guys will do it kind of like like an award. What the hell are those things called? I'm drawing blanks on everything today. Yeah, it's like a medal, basically, where if you rotate it around this direction, it's the same. But then you look at like a lot of US coins, and they flip, end over end, and that's how they're oriented. So I was kind of going back and forth between which way I want to do that. But anyways, because it's square material, I can just throw a stock on the other edge of the jaws and then square up the carrier, and that makes it dead straight, or straight enough anyways for this. So I was going back and forth between just getting like 2-inch round bar and saw cutting it, but then it's kind of harder to time everything when you flip it. So square stuff's easy. It makes the second side real easy for orientation. So yeah, just a little thing like these. I could just keep a bunch of these running. It's like a half-hour cycle time for this as it is. And I could just have that running because I don't have anything else going on in the mill right now until I get more material. So I was spending some time this week working on a bill of materials for all the datums with some revisions. I was talking to Skiff quite a bit, and he sent me some sample bearings to test out. So I've got a few little revisions that I want to do. I'm going to stick with a 3/16 pivot, but use 1/4 inch bearings.
Awesome.
So that I can use, because the issue that I'm having right now on these Rev NCs is that because there's so little contact in the frames with the pivot, I can grab the blade and yank on the blade, and you can shear the frames a little bit because there's no actual support around the pivot. They're captured, but because it's so thin, the pivot can skew a little bit. And that was, I think, the issue with that one datum that I held back, is that there just isn't enough contact in there. Maybe it's a big chamfer on the pivot or something. So it's real easy to shear the center line or the centering of the blade with that. But I think doing this, having the 3/16 through the whole thickness of the blade or through the frames, and then the bearing runs in a face groove around that, larger than that, it'll be a little bit more stable in there for the pivot. So I think keeping that blade dead centered is going to be a lot more stable that way. So
great idea.
I don't have Fusion up or anything right now, or I'd share that. But we talked about it a little bit, I think, last week. So
yeah, I think it's a big problem solver. I've always liked that, and that's been one of my main desires for the transient, to switch it over to 3/16 and 256, was so that I could do that in the pivot area with a 3/16 pivot, and then these 1/4 inch 1 millimeter bearings that you have that I've been using. They're great.
Nice.
I think it solves a lot of problems, and like definitely makes the situation as a whole a lot more stable.
Yeah, thankfully I originally designed it to run off of a 1/4 inch pivot, so my stop pin is far enough away to where I can get these bearings and everything in there without intersecting the stop pin channel or the track or anything. So I don't have to move the stop pin at all. I don't have to mess with any lock geometry. It's literally just modify the counterboard to be a face groove with slightly different diameters. So little bit more involved machining. I can't just, go in there and do a bore tool path with an 1/8 inch end mill. I got to actually go in with a 16th and, helix down into it and then do the ID, do the OD, clean up the floor. But the AKS 1/4 inch thrust washers for the bearings will fit into that pocket, and then these bearings will drop right on those. So it should still work out. Plus it'll allow me to thicken because I'm going to 1 millimeter bearings from 16th. I have like an extra 23 thou or whatever it is. So something like that. There's a little bit more meat in there for under the head. So I don't actually have to make the heads smaller than 70 thou. I'm still going to face them because the USA knife maker, the backs of the heads are not flat. However they turned them, they did them like dog shit. So I got to basically go in and face the backside of those screws. But I want to continue to use those because they're T15s. So
how are you facing them? Like holding them in jaws and cutting the backside of it, or what?
Yeah, I have. I was thinking about doing that in the mill and just doing a counterbore and then running a key seat in there or a dovetail so that I can face that, but also put a little thread relief because nobody, for whatever reason, makes pivot screws with thread reliefs, which is retarded. So they all just basically run out, and then there's a section of the screw that's not threaded and right into the head. But then all of the barrels have to go against the screw. So you have to put a big counterbore in there or a huge countersink where there's no threaded section. So it's just a bunch of extra work in there, whether you're modifying the barrels or modifying the screws or something. Realistically, we just need to make more pivots like we did before. Those things were sweet.
Dude, I loved those, and I just ran out. I had I think I had 300 of them made.
Yeah, shit. I have two sitting around somewhere, yeah.
Man, yeah, I think how many did I send you? Like 50 or something like that?
I think it was only a few. I didn't have very many of them.
Okay.
Maybe 10.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bummer, man. I actually hit up the dude that made them the first time, and he's so busy, it was like 12 weeks out, and they were like $8 a screw to have them turned. And I was like, and that was with that. And I was machining the Torx in them. For those first ones, I machined all the Torx. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so. That's a little too much, man. But I actually at the Maker Syndicate, I was talking to Michael from Tactile. Why am I blanking on his last name? It's alliteration, MM.
Yeah.
Anyways, and I was talking with him about hardware pricing, and I was like, dude, I'm making my monthly hardware orders, and it's like $1,500 or $2,000, and I'm telling him how much stuff it is, and he's like, dude, we have a million Swiss machines from the tactile turn side of stuff. Like, we will make your hardware. Like, we'll make your titanium 256s for like 55 cents a piece. And I'm like, I'm paying $1.65 a piece right now, and I'm like, dude, I'm using hundreds and hundreds of them a month. Like, that would be wonderful. So I got to hit him up, and I actually have to model a 256. I don't have a 256 modeled or anything, so I have to send them a solid model and let them quote it or whatever. But I think I'm gonna I got to go through and standardize on all the Mac stuff. I got to standardize counterbore depths so that I can have I typically have two screw sizes. Like, obviously the front screw that's further down the contour is a little bit shorter than the screw that's in the back. Like, I want to say it's like one of them's like an 1/8 inch long threads, and the other one is like 5/32 maybe, or maybe 3/16. Either way, they're a different size. But I have written on a piece of paper, because every knife is a little different, in my screw cutter, how many half or quarter turns I have to back it off out of the screw cutter so that I can cut it to length. And I'm like, this is fucking retarded. I need to sit here and standardize all this so that everything uses 2 screw lengths, have them made. Because those are where my big time sinks are. If I'm sitting there and I'm cutting 300 to 400 screws a month, that's hours of time. If I'm sitting there watching a Netflix show, screwing them in, screwing them out, and and cutting them off. Then if your bolt that holds the 2 sides of the screw cutter back off, it shears instead of cuts. So then I got to go in there because they have leave a burr or a broken half of a screw, and I have to load them in a pin vise, and I have to sit there and I have to chamfer the screw so that it doesn't bind up on the threads in the backspacer. So exactly. Those stare it, and that's funny is I've had people hit me up oh, where can I get a pin vise? And I'm like, these are what I use, but they're like $80 a piece. Like, I didn't pay that much for them, I don't think. But like, get the SPI version on Amazon. They're like $15. You know what I mean? Like, whatever.
Yeah.
But I use my pin vices. They are like my most used tool in the shop. Like, I use them when I'm finishing knives for sizing stop pins. And people are like, how do you size stop pins? I'm like, I chuck it up in a pin vise, and I like go back and forth across the belt and count how many times 1, 2, 6 with the same pressure. I can get them to within 5,000ths of the same length with that method. Yeah. With like 120 grip belt, like I'm pretty good at it, but it's still stupid, dude. Like it's dumb. It's dumb.
Last night while the mill was running, I was shortening pivots because I got AKS pivots for the datums, but I ordered them with the heads on them because I was originally going to do an anti-rotation feature in there. And I ordered the ones that are domed head because it was the only thing they had, and I didn't realize it until they came. And like, these aren't even going to fucking work anyways. But luckily I ordered enough screws to where I can just put a screw on both sides. So I'm basically cutting off the heads on all of them, and then I have to shorten them the length because I'm using them for the pivot side and for the pocket clip side. But yeah, last night I couldn't remember how I shortened the first 10 when I did the other 5 datums for 6, and I'm looking around because I moved everything around in here, so everything's like, I know I did it right here. I was standing right here when I did it, but how the hell did I hold these things? And I tried to do them in the bench vise and they would just move. I tried to do them in a cant twist clamp and it popped out. I'm like, this is not how I did it. And I literally could not remember how I did it. And I was using them in the drill. I put them in the Milwaukee drill, 3-jaw chuck in there. And I ground the first few off on the belt, but there's so much material because that domed head on there is real thick. So they're getting red hot. And I'm like, this is going to fucking kill the heat treat on here. But I have a little Milwaukee M12 little cutoff. And so I was cutting the heads off last night, and then I had maybe 10 of them, and I'm like, I should probably measure these things just to see, make sure I'm not going too short on them. And like you said, literally every single one of them was within 5 thou, which was crazy because I would just throw them in there. I'd cut the head off, and then I'd throw a chamfer on the belt and then flatten the face of it a little bit just so there wasn't a big burr. And that way I can stick them through the Knife Dog's pivot lapper, and square them up. And but yeah, it's wild doing that kind of stuff. There's all kinds of things where I'll throw something in the drill and shorten it, or I'll put stuff on the saw and cut it and whatever. It's always seems to be very surprisingly consistent.
Dude, the freakiest thing is like, and I'm sure you've experienced this, is like you put a vise in the machine for the first time and you like indicate the jaw and it's dead straight within a 1/10, and you're like, is my indicator bottomed out or broken? Or like, how did I get this thing in the machine like 1/10 straight over 6 inches or whatever? I remember like, because of my old job, I indicated in everything. I was working on magnets with rails, but like I still indicated things straight all the time just to be safe. And like probably 2 or 3 times a year out of thousands and thousands of parts that I would load into the machine like that, would it just be like deadly perfect. And it's like, yeah, that's like, you got to go buy a lottery ticket when that happens or something.
It's satisfying. I'm still so stoked on those indicators you sent me years ago, because I've always had interrapid stuff. I've got a 1/10 and a 5/10, but I honestly never use my 5/10 anymore. The only reason I have it in there is because my 1/10 is getting sticky. I got to send it out to Precision Instrument Repair and have them check it out. But I have the 50 millionths one that you sent me, and that one just lives in the Noga that I got up there. And I use that one literally 50 millionths for everything devices, which is kind of shitty because you start seeing all the little waves in the surface grinding on the jaws. So it's like, this thing is as straight as I could possibly make it. The only error that I'm seeing is because the damn thing's not ground flat.
50 millionths indicators don't lie, man. They show all imperfections, but
yeah,
honestly, it keeps. Go ahead.
I would say even indicating Styli on like the Renishaw probe tips, you can see the ball being slightly out of round. There's little flat spots around it. I just swapped all my stuff out to 3mm Styli from Q-Mark. So they're actually local, and I got a bunch of Speedios, and I got a couple buddies that work over there. So real cool guys, but they have everything, and they'll actually make you custom Styli. I think like same day. Yeah. Whatever you need, they'll send it. They'll make it length, diameter, shaft material, ball diameters, ball materials, literally whatever you need. So,
nice.
Yeah.
What's the protocol for, I honestly don't remember. Like when you are setting up a new probe tip, you just indicate it in with the set screws so that it's running true. And then there's a sequence that, like, how do you tell it what size ball you're using? Is there just like a sequence that you run? Oh, wow. Yeah,
Q-Mark. And same day, they'll ship stuff. If you order it before noon, they'll ship it out same day. I had it next day.
How much are they? Like $100?
No, they're actually quite a bit less than that. I think they're like $60, 50 to 70, depending on length and material and all that. I think the one that I got was like $45 or $54, something like that.
Damn.
Yeah. So on Haas, there's no section on there to tell it what the ball size is. You just go through in the VPS. There's a calibration sequence. So you can either do like complete calibration if you're going to do the spindle probe and the tool setter together. And that uses the actual diameter of the stylus on your tool setter. They basically calibrate each other. But I use the separate one. There's another one where it's individual calibration, where you calibrate the length of your tool setter first. So you have to have a master gauge length tool or something with a known gauge length. You position it over the stylus of the tool setter. You run that calibration, and it basically, you tell it what the stylus length is and what the stylus diameter is, or the calibration tool length, gauge length and diameter. And it touches off the length, and then it touches off the diameter on your tool setter. And that sets the variables in the control for the location of the tool setter, like the trigger point, and the diameter of it. So if you're ever touching off diameter of tools, which I never do.
So does anybody actually do that?
I know some people who do it, but I don't know. I don't see the benefit of it, honestly. It doesn't take into account deflection. It doesn't take into account anything like in real world cutting conditions. So it'll get you pretty close, but it's not enough for me to just put a tool in there and touch it off and expect something to be dead nut zero every time. So I don't even
mic them.
Yeah. Or just cut a feature and measure it and then make your adjustment. I think that's the most reliable way to do it. Like even like offline tool setting and stuff, like that doesn't take into account any run out that your spindle might have or anything. So, and you run the risk of fat fingering that offset when you type it into the control. So I think it's dangerous, and it's a lot more work than just sticking a tool in there and just running the tools touch off program.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, for your stylus on your spindle probe, then you tell it, you basically touch off the length in the calibration program, and that just sets the length of the probe with the stylus in the tool offsets page, but it also sets the variables so it knows the actual gauge length of that. And then you run it on a ring gauge, and then you tell it what the ring gauge diameter is. So for mine, I have a 2-inch ring gauge that's exactly 2 inches to like 6 decimals. So you just put in there, it's a 2-inch ring, you put it on the table on a magnet, and then it just runs that until it reads 2 inches basically. And that's how it knows what the ball diameter is, what the radius is, and what the run out is by running that calibration cycle. So it just basically probes, the quadrants multiple times, and then it rotates and does the same thing a bunch of times until it gets a 2-inch reading or whatever your ring gauge is. So because it rotates 180, it knows how much it's off from center line of the spindle. So, but I indicated, anyways, I was saying I indicated it with that 50 millionths indicator, and I got there's 0 TIR that I could even detect on there. And so I posted that, and everybody's like, oh, half a tenth, that's great. I'm like, this is 50 millionths. They're like, half a thou, 5/10, 5/10, that's great. I'm like, no, this is 10 times tighter than that.
This is 10x that. Oh, so, for people that don't know, TIR, total indicator run out.
Yeah.
That's pretty standard terminology, but some people wouldn't know what that meant, which is just when you're indicating a feature, it's not just one side. It's how much the indicator moves, positive and negative, like on a feature that's running out. So you can get the total run out of whatever you're checking. So anyways,
it was pretty straightforward process on there. So it was quick. Just throw it in, indicate it, and run the calibration cycle. And now that I finished all the datum stuff, I have a 3mm probe. I indicated all those things with the freaking indicator before. It took forever. So,
dude, I was just cutting blades yesterday, and I swept in 20 pivots when I was cutting pivot diameters, and I'm like, I need to get a smaller probe tip. Even if I didn't have a program made that like came over, ran down, just to be able to call up G90, G59, G0, X0, Y0, bring it down and run the cycle. Even if I had to do that manually without loading in an indicator, moving it out. Yeah, just if I could just indicate the pivot holes, it would make that job so much less tedious.
Yeah.
And so I need to do that. I need to prioritize that.
Yeah, when I did it before I got the small one on here, when I had to indicate I had to recut the tab hole on the blades because the magna cut grew in heat treat.
Yep.
So I had to slot the front tab hole. So I cut soft jaws, and I just dropped those in. I'd indicate the pivot hole, and then it would just slot the front. what I did in the beginning of that program was I just wrote a line right at the beginning, hit cycle start. It calls up an empty pot. In this one, it was just, tool 3, whatever. So it called up an empty pot, and then it would G90, X0, Y0, whatever, say G54. So it would move the table to center of where it was originally, and it would call up the empty pot. So I would just take the tool with the indicator and throw it in, jog it down, indicate, reset, and then keep going. So at least it was automating that part. I didn't have to go into MDI and do anything. It was automatically bringing it to the last known location. And then after I ran so many of them, it was just 0, so I stopped doing it. But I just put all that stuff in the program, and it kind of handled all that. But yeah, having the program there now is going to be so much better.
Love it, dude. That's a huge improvement. I definitely need to look at QMark's website and grab something. I have a couple of probe tips over here. I don't know. I think that one of them is a 3mm, might be a 4. I'm not sure. I have them sitting over there to check it out. But
yeah,
I'll send you actual Renishaw probe tips.
I'll send you the part number for it too. They sent me a 2mm one as well.
That's a little too small.
It's small, dude. It's for me. I think it's way too small. I mean, there's like the
zero,
shank on it is tiny. So
you get a little burr at all, and the shank's going to hit it, not the probe tip. So
exactly,
that's a little too small.
But it's nice that I got it though, just in case. So, and I still have my 6mm too. So if anything does smash or whatever. But
yeah, backups.
Yeah, the Halo fit on it and everything, so that was nice.
Sick, dude. So what do you have going on the rest of the week? I kind of just detailed my entire next 7 weeks of existence. What do you have going on for the next couple of days before the weekends?
Yeah, I'm going to try and finish up more of these datums. So I shortened all the pivots last night. I need to flat sand the rest of the blades. There's just 10 more, 9 or 10 more. I need to flat sand the flats on them. I might hand rub the primaries. I had one guy that bought one at Makers, and he was like, hey, what's this little mark on the blade? And it was just, feed lines. From the end mill, because I didn't do any resurfacing on the blades aside from flat sanding or line graining the flats. So moving forward, I might start to line grain some of the primaries, even though they look pretty good. There's a little witness on there above the finger choil. Anytime you cut like a wall with an interruption on it, whatever your flute spacing is, you see that same shape right above it from the flutes because your deflection's changing. So there's a very small little arc that you can see if you look just in the right light. That is the same shape as the finger choil or the sharpening choil up the spacing of the flute from that end mill. So I can see that a little bit. It's minor, but it's there. So I might sand some of these primaries just to get some of that little stuff out. Plus I think it'll look nice too. And then line grain the flats, kind of basically, hand rub, quote unquote hand rub. I hate that term, but I'm going to basically line grain everything. Yep, exactly. I need to get a shower door or whatever, like Mike at Keybar's got. That was like 2x72 cut, and I think they does like spray adhesive or something on the back of it and sticks it on a big door. So you got this like 72-inch long belt you could just walk next to and line grain. Look kind of cool.
Damn, that's the move right there.
Yeah, maybe one of these workbenches I'll stick a 2x72 on it flat. You don't get any J's, little J's from sanding.
Little schwaggles, yeah. I have my biggest surface plate here is 36 inches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, same.
If I had something, a long piece of, like a belt or something, that would work. I never really thought to do that, but it could work.
Yeah, it'd be cool. You could probably hang a weight off the end of it too if you attach on one side and keep some tension on it. I try not to sand on my granite plate. I have a small one that I just use for sanding. That's all I use it for, but I occasionally, because I have this 24x36 standards right here, I sometimes sand on it, but I try to avoid that as much as possible and throw a hole in it.
All I can say is I have indicated, if I think about my last job where we had our surface plates resurfaced every year, and I would have my indicator my surface gauges with indicators set up where obviously you're swirling that all the time to make sure you don't have grit underneath or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then I would sit there and indicate parts over, and 10,000 parts a year in like the same 6 positions underneath indicators. And I think the worst I ever had was like a 1/10 hole.
Oh yeah.
So, obviously if you're sitting there like sanding a shitload of parts over and over again, but could it be more than a couple of tenths? I guess if you don't actually get your surface plates refinished after like 5 years, it could be 1,000ths or something, which probably would defeat the purpose of the surface plate. But I mean, how many people in a home shop actually sit there and indicate parts on a surface plate anyways?
Probably
you know
not
what
many.
I mean? Like, not very
I think
many.
most people is, especially in the knife scene, it seems like don't really have a lot of like real world inspection experience. You see guys miking a blade and they'll mic 5 spots. Oh, this thing is flat. It's like, that's literally not flatness. That's not how that works at all.
Just parallelism. Yep. Like it's
so. Yeah, I think there's a lot of misconceptions on actual inspection techniques. That should be something that we should probably dive into at some point. You see even guys doing like videos on Instagram talking about GD&T and stuff. It's like, you guys have no idea what you're talking about.
I mean, you know what the classic one is mixing up fucking clearance with tolerance. Like,
yeah, it's
that,
not
like
the same.
It grinds my gears. Like, it makes me like cringe when some like, man, like that guy has really, his tolerances are so good, and I'm like, good is not a measurement of tolerance. Like, that couldn't be. First of all, you're talking about clearance between the blade and the frames, and a tolerance is a number. Like, it's not an adjective that like describes something. Like, it's how much plus or minus can a dimension be and still be acceptable. Like, it's not, and it's just funny. Like, there's so many people that like misuse that term. And it like, I used to like correct. I used to like actively post on everything I saw. You mean clearances with an asterisk. And like, eventually I just gave up. It's like, you know what?
Not worth
I cannot affect change here. You guys sound dumb to people that don't know what they're talking, that know what they're talking about. And if you're okay with that, then like, whatever I don't care.
Yeah. I try not to get too involved in that stuff anymore.
But that's like one of those ones that's just so egregious. Like, I feel like I see it multiple times a week. It just like wore me down. You know what I mean? It just, I don't know. Anyways, that was me just being a petty asshole. That's grumpy old 36-year-old dad mode coming out.
Yeah. We're almost 40. Yeah.
Don't remind me, man.
I know. So yeah, flats end blades. I need to blast everything. My blaster was kind of sucking a couple nights before makers. So that was kind of one reason why I only brought a few knives, just because blasting was taking so damn long.
Is your media just clapped out, or your filter clogged, or
it's
what?
Really fine glass bead. So it's not aggressive, obviously, at all, but it leaves a great finish. I mean, I think the finish on the knives looks amazing. Personally, I think it looks really good. I have one here that's done. This one, so basically all hand rubbed, aside from the primaries, obviously, but the flats are hand rubbed, line grained, and then frames, pocket clip, and the inset lock bar are glass beaded. And I think it looks really good. So I want to do that on pretty much all of them. There's a couple guys that want just raw, kind of burnished, just a shiny kind of high wearable finish on there. So I might leave a couple of them, but I think I'm going to probably do like 8 of them this finish, and then 2 of them just burnished, kind of bright finish.
Nice.
But yeah, it was taking a while to blast stuff, especially for whatever reason, the lock bars, primarily where I had to heat them. So, that surface gets so damn hard from getting red hot. Blasting off the discoloration for whatever reason was taking a long time on those. So I moved the cabinet a little bit, threw a bigger airline on it. That was probably some of it too. I just wasn't getting a lot of CFM into it. And even though I have an air dryer, I think I probably didn't have the air dryer on or anything. So there was probably moisture in the line too. It was just getting clogged. So should be better. I used it a little bit on the coin and stuff yesterday, and it was actually working really fast. So
nice, dude.
Try and blast through that.
I just not overhauled, but I put new gloves on my blaster because I had holes in my fingers.
Dude.
And I also, I was listening to Lucas Burnley on the Edge and Flow podcast talk about, he has a Trinco TP20 Model 20 like I do. He has 2 of them. I wish I had a second one. But he put a DeWalt shop vac filter on the inside of the bag where it comes into the vacuum chamber. And that complementing the cloth filter that they include, he said that it like completely changed like the quality of his dust collection. So I did that, and I also changed like the screen cover, the plastic screen cover on the inside of the glass. And like I feel like I'm a new man blasting. Like I don't know why I was like blasting into a fucking sandstorm, bro. Like that's I might as well have it. Like I was just like I think I'm getting it, like all that shit. And then like I'll take the parts out, like, wow, that's horrible. Put that back in.
Big old spot, yeah.
And redo that. And so yeah, I made all of those changes, and like these last like few parts that I blasted were like game-changingly easier to do. The only thing we talked about this in a previous episode, but like the only thing else that I could do is get a new unit, because like I'm pretty broad-shouldered, and like when I'm in the Trinco, I literally am holding like this, like I'm compressing my shoulders to get my arms into the holes, and like it's so uncomfortable. And like I just want to get like a scat blast cabinet or something, like a 36-inch width cabinet that I can just comfortably like post up in and blast. Because I'm like when I was blasting all the stuff for makers, like 4 or 5 knives with like titanium frames and titanium lock bar inserts, plus all the hardware and like pocket clips and backspacers, like, and just blasting everything. It was so, I find that like it's something I dread. And I like try and take mental note of like what those things are, because I find that like if I make small quality of life improvements to the processes that suck the most, my time here as an overall is like way more enjoyable. If I can like decrease the shit factor of the things I dread doing, like I don't dread them anymore. So that is like one of those things where I'm like, this is something that is like kind of like the probe tip. You know, like if I think about, I hate machining blades. Why do I hate machining blades? Because I have to machine the pivot holes. Why do I hate machining pivot holes? Because I hate sweeping the fucking holes in. Okay, I need to change that, you know? Or like, what do I hate about the super mini mill the most? Like the fact that all of my fines get into the chip tank, the coolant tank, because it's integrated. How do I improve that process of cleaning that out? Okay, I got a Freddy. Yeah, it was $4,000, but like okay, now I no longer twice a month when I completely clean my coolant out do I dread doing that, because I have an easier way to do it. So the blast cabinet is just another one of like a long list of things that like I need to improve, so that like there's nothing that I hate doing out here.
Yeah, your blaster doesn't have a tumbler in it, does it?
No, I wish that it did. The only one that I've ever seen is Oz has that. When I was at his shop, he had just gotten the tumbling unit so that he could. So it doesn't work that great on profiles, but it works well on flat parts. So like they would go through and blast the profiles and then tumble blast like the big flat areas, and he had luck with that. So
nice. So there's a company, it's Gimbal Automation. They're out here in LA. They're making a small tumbler that you can just stick in any blast cabinet now.
Nice.
So I mean, it would be perfect, I think, for like pocket clips and small stuff. Probably work for frames if you only put one or a couple in there. The only concern that I have is just tumbling a bunch of parts in there and then banging on each other.
That's where I come into it. Is like, aren't they going to skive and scratch each other? It's like the same thing when you're tumbling in the tumbler. You get like errant scratch marks. You have to be so careful how you remove them, because like you pulling them like in grading media can cause scratches, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But that'd be something to look into, because I mean, you could even just blast the bulk of it, and then if you have any stray scratches or anything, you can always hit those little spots manually if you need to. I'll stick a link in the description for that stuff. They're actually making a lot of really cool stuff. They're doing spindle grippers and just a bunch of like kind of light automation stuff that you can stick in your machines, even in your mini mill and stuff too, or ones you don't have coolant through prep. So
nice.
Yeah, that tumbler is pretty sweet. And then, yeah, so I was listening to, have you listened to Lean Built at all yet with Pearson and Henry?
No.
Andrew Henry?
I saw you posted that. I can appreciate that, dude. And I like watching Jay's videos. And Andrew Henry, right? That's his name?
Yeah.
He is a wealth of information, but I just wish he would lighten up a little bit. You know what I mean? Like he's just so... He's so to the point, like he's intense, like as intense as a guy that has dedicated his life to lean manufacturing can be, you know? And like, I don't know if he laughs. Like, does he laugh? Does he, you know, I don't know if he does.
Yeah. No, he's
and
cool.
So
he's
like, I'm like,
dude,
man, I want to listen to the podcast, but I'm like, do I want to listen to it? I don't know.
I feel like you're getting scolded the whole time. No, he's cool. I talked to him pretty frequently. He's a good guy. But yeah, he made a point on here where, lean stuff's not so much about just making a shitty process just easier. It's figuring out a way to just eliminate it entirely with your process.
Yeah.
You know, whatever it is, where it's like, yeah, you could do something that sucks as fast and as efficient as possible, but if you could just not have to do it at all, that's the goal. So, it sucks that doing like a brush research, NAM power brushes and stuff don't really give you the same finish as like a nice glass bead. They'll do all the deburring and stuff necessary, I think, for knife stuff. But yeah, I think blasting is just one of those processes is kind of just necessary, but it's going to suck regardless. But making your tumbler fun to use is much better. I had a small Harbor Freight tumbler years ago, and I did a bunch of shit to it. And I actually had one of the smallest Harbor Freight tumblers the little 5-pound one or whatever, but the screw on it busted. So I couldn't put a bowl on it, but I actually mounted it to the side of the blaster. So I could turn that on and it would vibrate all the media. So the media was loose. It was constant. The media was constantly rolling and loose, and it flowed so good. I never had any spots where it wasn't sucking up media or anything. So that was like a huge upgrade, but it sucked using it because you're just fucking vibrating the whole time, just standing there for an hour, just shaking your bones.
I think that I come up with the perfect solution to the problem to what we're discussing. And that's to hire somebody to do all my sandblasting.
Where's
somebody Hudson here that sizes my Hudson, where you at? No, I'll pay somebody good money to size my hardware, to deburr my hardware, to size my pivot barrels, and to blast all of my parts. If that's you, hit me up. You live in Erie, Pennsylvania, and you want to make $20 an hour to do this stuff. You want to be my Tobe, you can come in here and do that work.
Yeah.
Hit me up.
I think that's why the datums have taken so long this week to finish, because I literally have to blast. I got to shorten hardware. I got to flat sand the blades, and I got to sharpen. And I don't like doing any of those. Like for making knives, I hate sharpening. It sucks.
It's because you don't have a good way to do it. I was in the same boat until it's like the thing that like it's the final thing you do. You're sick of the knife by this point. You're ready to ship it out, and it like can completely destroy the knife.
Yep.
Like it can make the knife look like amateur hour if you don't do it right, or if you roll up the blade and scuff it, or if you ride the heel of the blade into the finger choil and you get the edge that glances up and you're like, now I got to make my finger choil really big to hide that ugliness, or like you overheat the tip and like now it's discolored and you have no way to like, there's so many things that can go wrong if you're not like having a dialed setup. And like the AMK is not perfect, but I'm proficient enough with it to where it suits my needs. But I definitely want to get the Broadbeck version that has the bigger belts and a contact wheel and a better guide system, and it's a little bit bigger and more robust, and like it has a nice VFD and a good NEMA motor, or NEMA VFD and a good motor instead of an open sewing machine motor that has like a shitty VFD. It's just like there's so many hack things about the AMK version where I'm like, I need to upgrade this, and it'll be sweet when I do because I'll appreciate the change. And then I'll just give you my AMK. That's what we'll do. I'll get the Broadbeck, and I'll give you the AMK, and you can cut your teeth on that thing, and then you can upgrade eventually too.
Send it with that rotary.
Yeah. I mean, it's rotary sitting back here.
And I'll mill your blades.
Honestly, like, you guys heard it here first. If that's something you sincerely want to do, like, I would be so game to send that off to you, pack it up in a crate and send it off to you, because I will literally probably never use it, even though I should. And like, I know you'll use it. It's just a question of, do you want to dedicate the table space to it? You know what I mean? And if you feel like you do, then
I'm kind of on the fence. Like I like having 30 inches of X in here, but at the same time, I would prefer to have an A axis too, especially since I'm kicking blades on angles and doing all that. I mean, for my stuff, because I'm only doing one angle on the primaries on these.
Extension?
Yeah, I would hang it off the side. So I just build.
Would you get the Pearson? Would you get the Pearson version, or would you'd buy the subplate, or what would you build it?
I'd probably just make one. The Pearson one's cool though. So I mean, it depends. If I want to spend the time and cash on material to make my own, or just buy the Pearson one. But it would essentially be like what Pearson's doing. That thing's pretty sweet.
What would you do for like a tombstone? Like, would you make one? Would you just like, what do you think you would do?
Probably do some kind of rock lock 96 millimeter pattern, just so it's somewhat universal. I've made a ton of little tombstones for those just over the years for Nikin ones, primarily Nikin and Brother ones, rotaries. But yeah, most likely just make something for it. Just make a little tombstone. But ideally be mounted on like a 96 millimeter faceplate, like a Lang or 5th axis one or something. Just a manual.
You let me know when that makes the most sense for you. You know what I mean? Because obviously you have to get the 4th axis drive, and there's a few ancillary things you have to take care of. But like when you feel like you're in a position to do that, like let me know. I'll build a crate for this thing and ship it out.
Should that be rad?
Think twice about it.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Literally sitting on a cart behind the machine, and like I get annoyed walking by. It's like because my machine's like 30 inches off the back wall, and that cart is like 24 inches wide. And like, there's a little area where like, I'm obviously not a small guy, and I have to like squeeze back. I'm just like, I got to get this thing the fuck out of here.
Send it over.
I am so crammed into this shop, man. Like everywhere I go, I'm turning sideways, trying to be like a piece of paper to get around things. Like, and I'm just over it. And like, yeah, I need to add on in the worst way. And like, if in the meantime I can get some things out of here that are occupying space, like, and obviously like that makes sense. Like, you know, you could make some good money doing it, like whether it's for me or from other people. And like, if that's something that I could remove from my plate, it would free me up in a way that I would really appreciate. So let's definitely make that
shoot
happen.
It over, man. Whenever. Yeah, it's annoying that Haas doesn't allow you to just move drives and shit to another machine. You have to buy the kit. You have to buy that option. It's so stupid. It's like, I got a quote for it. It was like $4,200 because they have to come here and install it. It's like, dude, I've installed hundreds of fucking rotaries on Brothers before. I don't need you guys to come here and plug this thing in.
No.
And it's so stupid because like you could pull your drive and all your wiring out of your machine and send it with it. And I could put it in here, but they still require you to buy new ones because you just need that activation code. It's like, I could put yours in here, buy the whole kit, not even use those parts. And all they have to do is put the code in. It's the same thing. There should really be an option to just, or even just not have that stupid option at all and just be able to use a rotary, turn it on and off with a parameter.
Even if they're like, we need to make money, like make it $1,000 with your own hardware.
Whatever.
You know what I mean?
Something.
Like, make it a manageable amount that's like, okay, we'll pay your fucking tax, Kim Jong-Ha's.
Exactly.
You know, and like, you know, you can get your money, but like now this other drive card is just going to sit doing nothing.
Exactly.
In the machine.
It's
like,
a waste.
It's literally wasted hardware.
Yeah, that's what I told my HFO. I'm like, this is a fucking waste of money. It's a waste of resources. It's a waste of money. Like, if I'm going to get the rotary from him, he doesn't need the drive and wiring. He can just pull it out and send it with it. You know, but anyways, they won't budge on it. They won't budge on anything. And most of the time, even when I hit them up with questions, they don't even respond. It's extremely frustrating. Facebook groups, HFO, Haas Direct, like very simple questions about stuff. I mean, for me, at least, it seems like I would imagine that they would be simple questions for like somebody who's not, you know, retarded. And you would think that most apps or service guys wouldn't be, but they don't even want to entertain the questions. It's annoying. So
that's their fatal flaw for sure.
Yeah.
Is their service sucks. Like, yeah, it's domestic, but like you're paying $200 to get us there and at least $200 for an hour for no matter anything you want. Like, oh, cool. I got like $400 on fire no matter what it is.
Yeah. And they won't even,
and you're booked out for a month. So like you can't even get here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of frustrating because a lot of people, oh yeah, Haas has the best service. It's like, no, they have like 800 vans because they need that many people doing service on shit. I don't think that's a plus.
It's not a plus.
Yeah. But
well, cool, man.
Anyways.
I just figured that makes the most sense. But yeah, sounds like you have a busy week ahead. You can stay moving and shaking. And you know, October is going to be a good month for you. I think it's going to be for me too. I'm looking forward to seeing you. For those that don't know, I asked Ken if he would hang out at my table with me for CCKS. So all of you guys will be able to come up and introduce yourselves to him and get some FaceTime with him at the show. Thank you very much for coming and backing me up because that will be of great service to me. So yeah, here's to that. I mean, more or less, I think that the next 7 weeks are going to be Ken sharing about his continued attempts to perfect the manufacturing and assembly process of the Datum. It'll be me talking about Mac transitions and more show prep. And I think we are going to try and get some guys on here in the not too distant future. We are going to get another mic and start sending it out. I think you guys pretty much got your fill of us talking about the pre-show jitters in our process. And in an attempt to continue to keep you guys engaged and entertained, we want to start to have some of our friends on here so that we can talk about maybe some variability in their manufacturing processes or, you know, just a little bit of background information about what their expansion plans are so that we can kind of continue to feed off of each other, both from a parts manufacturing perspective and a business development perspective. I think getting guys on and getting a fresh point of view is both entertaining to you guys, the listeners, as well as motivating to us, the machinists. So
yeah,
very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. Definitely want to get Alex on here, try and get Yoni on here if he's got time, and it should be good. Primarily guys that are doing the same thing, some machinists and making nice stuff. So cool.
Love it, man.
Sweet,
well, cool,
dude.
man. I hope you have a good week. It's 2:30 now, and we got a bunch more hours left in the day. So I hope you kill it, and I plan on checking in with you next week.
Cool, dude. All right, man. Later.
Sweet, dude. Peace out.
Bye.